All right. At this point, I want to show you how to create a board for your board game in Gravit. So let's take a look over here. Before I do this, I just want to show you some examples of some boards here. This one looks like it's cardboard, but they have this cool shaker thing here that gives you kind of like a randomized. Maybe it doesn't, but I was thinking we could make a randomized thing like this for the microbits. So we're going to do that. It'll be pretty quick and simple. I'll probably give you a tutorial on that. They laser cut some characters. I'm thinking you'll 3D print the characters, but here's a nice little puzzle board game that looks really neat. Here's another board game that looks pretty good with some coloring there. This one's called Nuclear War. It's an old game. It's pretty neat. But you can see how some of these were, like this was done by a 7th grade class. It's pretty, I like the Travelers logo there. Boxes for holding pieces. This is good. This one's really neat. This has a bunch of buildings that were laser cut and then, 3D on the board itself. So there's a number of things we can do with the laser cutter, but I'm just going to show you some basics so that you can get started, and then you can kind of get as creative as you want with it. So first, you're going to open up your Gravit account, and you're probably going to see a message like the one that I'm about to see. Hopefully, yeah, like this. Whoa. Okay, that's crazy. So we are going to create a 12 by 12. That's 1 foot by 1 foot when we switch to inches there. Okay. So 12 inches by 12 inches workspace. And then you'll probably see something like this. And maybe not. I don't know. Okay. So we aren't going to do this. So we're just going to click the X. Sometimes it says continue with the free version, whatever. Okay, first things first. Let's make the perimeter that we're going to cut from the actual piece of Baltic birch that we're going to use. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to simply go size here and go 11 by 11. That'll give us a very uniform square. If you weren't doing a square, if you were doing a circle or some unusual shape, you would make this a little different. For this purpose, we are going to make the fill 0 and the border at 100%. I am going to change the border to red. Red is going to indicate cuts, whereas I'm going to use black for, what do you call it? Engravings. Sorry. Okay, so let's say I wanted to have a square system that goes around the perimeter here. Well, what we could do is we could make each square an inch, 1 inch by 1 inch, and we could, again, take the fill down to 0. There we go. And the border, making sure that the border is now black. That's going to allow us to engrave it. So we're going to duplicate this. Command D. Okay, now we have a duplicate, so we're going to move that, align it. I'm just locking it with the other one. And now if I duplicate it again, it should duplicate at that same rate. So there we go. Did we fit 11 in there? We should. Okay, good. So now I'm going to hold down Shift, selecting all of these. You could also group them over here just by clicking and dragging, or clicking on the top one, and then going to the last one, holding Shift, and you'll select all of them. But I just duplicated that, Command D again, and now I am going to put those down there. I am going to duplicate this one last time, or one more time. That didn't do... You know what that did? It put that duplicate all the way down here somewhere. So we don't want to do that, actually. Let's do undo, undo. Okay, so let's duplicate. Okay, so now we are back at this duplicate. Boop. And let's do a rotate to 90. And then put that there. And then we're going to duplicate that again and one last time. Now, by doing it like that, you are going to have some extra squares here that you want to get rid of. If you don't, what will happen is it will engrave that twice, and then our variables on the laser cutter are going to be running 2 times the amount we would normally want. So now we have these squares here, these tiles where you can move around. That looks pretty good. But maybe I want to title this with some sort of logo that you come up with or whatever. So I'm going to call it, let's just call it Dreamlab the Game. Okay. And obviously that's really small, and we want to make that look pretty cool. So we're going to change the font maybe to this thing. I don't know if I like that. No, I don't. So let's do. Oh, this is perfect. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to change the size here to. It was at 20, so let's try it. We could do. That's okay, because I kind of want this down here in the corner. Okay, there we go. Now, if you're putting text on and you want it engraved, make sure it's black and make sure it's converted to a path. Now it will be engraved. And in fact, this will engrave an outline of those letters around it. For you to see what I'm talking about, we can go 0 there and then a border there. And that's what it'll actually engrave. The other version, if we wanted it to be filled in, we would we could do a raster engraving. That would work. Okay. But I actually like it like that. So now let's say we want to incorporate the microbit. So I have our microbits over here, and this is an empty box. Okay. So what we're going to do with this microbit, and actually at this point what we'll do is we'll come over here. I will put you on full screen here. What we're going to do is I'm going to measure this right now. We can probably find the dimensions, but I'm going to save you. Well, maybe what we'll do is I'll measure it, then you'll measure it too. I like that idea, actually. So you can use the digital caliper here. That would give you fairly accurate measurements on this thing. So I got my one measurement by my other measurement. Okay. So now we turn it off. Okay. Write it down. Okay. Now, I am not going to use those measurements. I'm going to give you a different measurement here. But let's just say, oh, and that was in millimeters. Let's just say, so you would want to change that to inches. Okay. Like this. See what I'm doing here? Just measuring. Okay. Well, that's a nice number there. Okay. So now we're going to go back to, whoops, not that, this. Back to our board here. So I just put a square in, rectangle, and I'm going to change this to, let's say it was, okay. So let's say this was the size of our microbit. It's a little off, but it's more or less the size. You could cut away just this area for the buttons and the LED array, but why we're cutting a hole here, and remember for a hole we're going to go 0 on the fill and red in the border. Why we are doing this is so that we can take our microbit, press the A button, and then it'll roll the dice for us. It'll be a kind of neat function on there for us. Okay, so maybe you also have some cards available to the people to pick up. So you would want to make sure that this is the size of the card that you have here. So maybe it's 3 by 4, I don't know, or 2.5 by 4. Maybe that's your card size. But regardless, maybe, well, I don't know. So maybe you would put your card text here, and we would put that down here, and we'd say cards, and you would modify that obviously, and make that into a path. If you're putting text around the on each tile, make sure that you've also converted those to paths. So if you had a free space or something like that. To make sure that your text is fitting, well, you would just double check. But let's say we wanted a free space somewhere. Okay, maybe on this corner. Notice how it kind of automatically aligns for me. So we want that free space. We go to modify, we go to path, convert to path. Now, let's say we wanted an image of, a gear. Let's look up a gear. Gear. Okay. So we're going to go to an image. Ideally, you find something like this, or this, where it's an SVG, but like, see how it's transparent with the gray and white checker blocks? That's good. So we're going to save this image as, and I am going to call that gears. Cool. Now I got that. Now, back here, I'm going to go in and go place, import place image. And I believe that probably went to my downloads, so it didn't. Okay, maybe it's on my desktop. Maybe it's in my documents. Here, gears. Okay, so we're going to cancel, open that. And so this is actually kind of neat because of how it worked out. So we are going to modify and then arrange, send backwards. I wonder if we can just arrange, send to back. Yeah. Okay. So now that's in the background, and well, this is one object. So in order for it to look right when we're doing this, we would have to raster engrave it. But now we're really starting to get somewhere with this. Now if I wanted one image on this square or this square, you would go through the same process. You can import SVG graphics into there, and then you can convert these to paths too, so you can vectorize the image. That would help out in some of the processes. But along the way, make sure you're saving. So we would call this board game. Okay, save. Now it's saving it. Again, when you're done, you're going to export as an SVG there and send it to me. This looks good, I think, except for all the blocks that are missing. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. If we go back here, remember down at the bottom of this document, laser cut board, think about how people are moving. So if you wanted to add arrows or something like that to help in-game play, that would be good. Oh, the other thing is, if you aren't putting the microbit in the actual board, so you're not using the buttons, and you wanted people to use the accelerometer to shake it, and then that would roll the dice, you might 3D print a little stand for it. that's another option. We'll come back to 3D printed objects for the player's pieces. Yeah, the rest of it, this is step one. This is stage one on your board. So I think you have enough here to work off of where you can really make something pretty neat looking. All right, well, that's board game design 101, I guess, for this project. Good luck. Can't wait to see you.